something, even though it was totally innocent, that would still maybe make you think, well, what was that guy reaching for? Yeah, it was probably just his wallet, but I don't know.
Right.
And so I would maybe go one step further and say, just put your hands on the wheel and don't reach for anything until they're at the window. And then, like when I went through the academy, it was, you would say, instead of just saying, give me your license and your insurance, instead you might start off by saying, where do you keep your license and insurance? And then they say, well, my license is in my wallet, which is in my back right pocket. Okay, well, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and reach for that now.
Oh, there you go.
Which probably involves taking the seatbelt off, moving around your seat a little bit. But they know you're about to do that because you said that's where you keep it. Could someone say all that and say it's in my wallet and still reach for a pistol? They could, but again, you can't control everything.
Well, let me tell you something I did. I wasn't a boy, but I was a young man. And in retrospect, it was the most foolish thing I could have done. But it was totally harmless. But it could have gotten me killed. I was pulled over because I didn't have the renewal sticker on my license plate. But I had just bought it. And it was sitting right next to me. Now, it was past due, okay, like a few days past due. He pulled me over. Shoot. He's pulled me over. He's going to write me a ticket, but I've got this thing right here. I'm going to save him the trouble. So as soon as I pulled over, he pulled behind me. I got out of the car holding this, and I ran to his car to save him the trouble of having to get out. What do you think he did?
Well, at the very least, he probably started screaming orders at you.
He got out. He opened his car, stayed behind his door. I don't know that he pulled a gun, but said, "Get back in your car immediately." "Oh, officer, I just want to show you. Get back in your car immediately." "Yes, sir," and I did. Then he came up, and then he chewed my ass. Rightfully so, because he didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
Here's some guy jumping out of his car, running at him.
Yeah.
I was just a dopey young man just trying to save him the time and trouble and avoid a ticket myself. But that was a case where I'm 100% in the wrong. But I didn't think. Well, that could have ruined. I mean, his heart probably jumped out of his chest.
Yeah. There's stories of people, officers being on a traffic stop and having medical issues because something scares them that bad.
Well, sure, I bet.
There's I'm not going to think of the guy's name right now, but I attended a class where he talked about, it was officer wellness or officer survival, serious subject like that. And the guy talks about, teaching a class and asking everyone, what would they do if they say you went up to someone's window and they pulled a gun? What would you do? And of course, everyone had their answer. Well, I'd get to a tactical position. I would get behind the pillar of the car so it's harder for him to get me. And then the one guy said, well, I'd probably have a heart attack because that's what happened to me, and he fell over and then the guy drove off. He didn't get shot, thankfully, and he lived, but it scared him so bad it almost scared him to death.
Yeah.
And so you're always worried about that. And then, like you say, someone who is a good person but doesn't understand what they're doing comes running at you, and you're already scared about this all the time anyway.
Sure, and here he comes.
Yeah. I talked to a guy. Now, this person was, I wouldn't say he was old, but he was older than me.
Okay.
It was a different generation, and he said, well, when I was young, and he said, I guarantee a lot of older people today, we were taught you get out and you stand at the back of your vehicle. You don't go to the officer's vehicle, but that way they can see that you're not reaching for something in the glove box. I said, well, yeah, and once you're already standing there with your arms crossed or your hands at your side or whatever you're doing at the back of your vehicle, I guess, yeah, you're right. I can see you. I can see that you're not doing anything. But it's the action of getting out of the car. But so you have to understand, especially if you pull over someone who has gray hair and they look old, maybe that's what they think they're supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
So, yeah, so you have that. And it's totally innocent.
Exactly. Yeah. Just the whole nature of the story. I mean, I have to think that, have you had a case where you thought, okay, here we go?
Just as far as like maybe I thought someone was going to be violent towards me.
Correct.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm just that good at talking to people or if I'm just that lucky, but I've had situations where I thought for sure someone was going to try to hit me or just do something inappropriate, and it always seems like at the last second things kind of dwindle, and that's good, but again, maybe it's just dumb luck, but several years ago, I think it was 2016 or 17, I got called to a gentleman had been stabbed, which obviously that sounds bad, and I'm working in this little country town at the time. Back then, I was a Gerald policeman. I can talk about it because I'm not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Had a great time out there, and it was such a quiet place. You almost never got any serious calls, maybe loud music or something. But if someone had been stabbed, and at first it came out that it might have been a needle. Well, no, it might have been scissors or a knife, and you're by yourself. There's just a tiny little department with 4 employees, and you're the only one working tonight. And I was told something about 20 people involved. Like, well, I never said I was all that tough to begin with, but I'm sure not tough if there's 20 people.
Yeah.
And I remember getting into our armory, which basically just a closet, and I grabbed an extra can of pepper spray, and my plan was to get out and hold the button down on both of them until they quit spraying, because I thought 20 people were going to be coming at me. And as it turned out, there was probably 25 people on the scene, but they were just out there concerned for the 2 people fighting.
Sure.
And it was like Team A and Team B, and luckily none of them started to fight each other. So when I got there, actually, nothing bad happened at all. But you don't know that. So the whole time driving there, I'm like stuck between wanting to put the pedal to the floor, but I'm also kind of thinking, well, I had backup coming from a county department, but they might be 20 minutes away.
Sure.
And this whole town is only 1 square mile, so I can get there in like 15 seconds, but my backup's nowhere near. And so you're thinking, do I put it to the floor or do I idle over here? I don't know but then again, this guy's bleeding. So now I don't know. EMS is going to be on scene. What do we do now? Well, they want someone there to make them safe. So now I had to get there. And again, it all turned out just fine. The guy was stabbed and it came close to his heart, but he lived. And I still see him around town. He's in good condition still, but that was terrifying. But luckily it wasn't towards me,
Right.
And so I've just always been very lucky with that.
Take this for what it's worth. I've made the statement many times that a good police officer, should be more like Andy Taylor than RoboCop. And you've got that Andy Taylor, Mayberry demeanor about yourself. You're just you've got that way about yourself that can kind of just put people at ease.
Yeah.
So maybe that's part of it.
And having the ability, as impossible as it is, to try to stay calm in a situation when a normal person would not be calm.
Well, you have to.
And I don't know if that's something you're just born with. I always found myself to be really calm when in a tense situation, and then afterwards reliving it and thinking about how things went and how I could have done it better. And then afterwards, my heart rate goes up. And I'm like, wow, that was a bad situation. I could have been really hurt there. But at the time, just being cool and calm and not getting so excited that, like I say, like you have a heart attack or something.
Exactly.
I don't know. There's no secret to that. I think you just do it or you don't.
Why does someone be a police officer to begin with? I mean, it's something that I've always been very thankful that someone else has done, because I've never had a desire to do it. But many do.
And I bet if you asked 10 different officers, they'd all have 10 answers. But at one time in my life, I thought, I kind of admired people that could create things. So like maybe writers or a singer or songwriter. It was something that, like, if you can create something that stays around forever, even after you die. Well, I'm not much of a writer and I can't sing and dance. And so at some point I just decided that was a really good job because you could help other people. And whether you live to be 40 or 104, you still, people would say like he was a good person and he helped people, and almost kind of like leaving something behind, I guess. But, yeah, I don't know. That's how it was for me.
Very good.
It wasn't about trying to be, a Dirty Harry or some kind of tough guy,
Well, see, you bring that up, and I'm glad you did, because I wanted to touch on that too. I think too many people watch too much television or too many movies, and they think that this is how things are, and it's nothing close to how things are. I can't tell you how many times, and I know I've seen it at least as many times as you, just because I drive a lot in my job. But you see people going down the highway. I'm going 65 and a 65. You're a police officer, so I'm not going to tell you I'm going faster than that. But I'm doing the speed limit, maybe a little faster, but not much. I'm being safe. I'm going with the flow of the traffic. And here come 2 cars tailgating each other, just weaving in and out of traffic. It's like they're auditioning for the Fast and the Furious. What is with that? This is something that's kind of new. I never used to see this until maybe 10, maybe 15 years ago. This is something new to me. I shouldn't say new, but more frequent. How's that?
I feel like there's always been bad drivers, and I feel like there's always been people that are into, say, muscle cars and hot rod culture. And, I've had speeding tickets in my day, so I get the thrill of driving fast. But it seems like you pick your spots. You don't do it when there's a bunch of other cars around.
Well, and that's what I mean. There's
Yeah.
there's driving fast. There's going 80 and a 70 when there's no traffic around. I'm talking about weaving in and out of traffic, passing people on the right, and then using the shoulder as well. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about.
Well, I haven't seen that one in a while, but I've seen it.
I've seen it a lot. Highway 270 in St. Louis that's where you see it.
Really?
That's where I see it anyway. I'll say that.
Yeah, I have a hard time. It's so funny that we brought that up. So one of your shows, and I mean, it had to be at least 2 years ago, but one of your shows, I think you actually started off the show talking about people that drive in the left lane and won't move, and that bothers me more than it should. Like, more than it should bother a regular person, just a sane individual. I can't stand it. And we have family in Kirksville, Missouri. That's about a 3-hour drive if you don't stop on the way. Sure. But the whole way, it's basically 2 lanes, and it's I-70. Well, from here to Columbia, it's I-70. Then you got 63, but, again, it's 2 lanes. And there will be a semi-truck in the right lane, and the guy next to him who's doing the exact same speed as him. Well, first of all, why you want to sit next to this big truck? It's just dangerous for you. Yeah. Either get in front of him or get behind him. But you don't sit next to him. Sometimes they'll forget you're there and start coming over. Sure. And then meanwhile, not only are you not passing them in the passing lane, but you got 37 people behind you, and I know you see it. You just don't care. Yeah. And I hate that. I get so angry about that.
That's against the law, isn't it?
I should know that, shouldn't I? I know for a fact. Years ago, I delivered furniture, and most of the furniture we would deliver would be like right in our immediate area. But one time, someone came and they were from Illinois. I guess we had a good deal or a better deal than their local store, and so it was one of the longest deliveries I'd ever done. Well, anyway, the boss, the warehouse manager, my boss, he says, "Hey, listen, when you cross in Illinois, don't be hanging out in the fast lane." I said, "Well, we're in a box truck. Why would we, Right. He says, "Well, I'm just telling you, if you're in the fast lane," and I don't know how he knew this, and maybe he was wrong, but he said something like, if you're in the fast lane or the passing lane for more than a mile, they can pull you over. They can get a ticket for that. Really? And I don't know that we have that here because I've never heard of that, but obviously some places do, I guess. And,
maybe it just depends on where you are.
And I don't know if that, whether you're passing people or not, you just can't be in the lane. But I think it might be true because even now, and I don't go that way very often, but sometimes I'll be on that side of the river, and I notice that people are, for the most part, a little more courteous about driving, and they don't hog that lane like that. And so I think all those years ago, and his name was Greg, and I thought Greg must have been right about that because they still kind of drive that way now. So, yeah, if it's not that way here, it should be.
Another pet peeve of mine. Tell me why this is. I told you the story earlier about how my tags were past due by a few days, a week maybe, and the cop pulls me over. Well, okay, my tags are past due. I'm in violation. I get that. I see temporary tags on vehicles that say, okay, right now we're June the 11th. I've seen temporary tags on vehicles that say April the 15th, 2019. What's the deal?
And they must get pulled over, and you could do that for a while. You could get lucky and just, maybe a cop sees it, but he's on the way to do something more important, so you get away that day, or you get pulled over and, it was a warning, but at some point you're just going to get a ticket, you would think.
I think. But, I mean, I saw a guy, this was in the city of St. Louis. It was off of Broadway. I had to do something down there. And this was a guy in an old pickup truck. And he was a junk hauler. That's what he looked like, okay? And he had temporary tags on that plate, and they were April 2018. 2018. Now, granted, this was probably March or April, so it wasn't June. But it was 2018. Those tags have been expired for 2 years. There's 2 things going on here. First of all, he hasn't had tags on that vehicle for 2 years, which tells me he probably never got that thing inspected. Nor did he ever pay sales tax on that thing. Right. Nor does he have insurance. I'm making some assumptions here, but...
Probably not.
Yeah. What's the deal with that?
Well, it's just, I think some people... I think they press their luck and they think, well, whatever the fine is, if I got to go to court and pay a fine for not registering my vehicle annually, whatever that fine is, sometimes is cheaper than what it might cost for them to get the car legal, or they just kind of take a chance and hope they don't get pulled over, and if they do, well, the fine that I'm going to get was cheaper than fixing the vehicle, I guess.
Is he throwing the tickets in the trash can?
Well, that's another thing. If you get tickets, the ticket